Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Hello and welcome to our first show of The Psychic and the Trainer. My name is Maryam Faresh and
I'm Cora, the trainer.
And together we blend the mind and the spirit for both the pet and the pet parent. I am a medium and psychic to both people and pets.
And I am the trainer. And I step in with the logic and the expertise as the trainer to answer the question, who really has the problem, the pet or the pet parent?
And then I read the energy of the pet, sometimes communicate with the pet, and then I also read the pet parent as well to see if I can determine where the imbalance might be lying before Cora will step in and train. So together we have a really unique combination of assisting pets and the pet parent to find spiritual and physical balance for both. So if you guys are ready, let's get started with our first caller. Jennifer is going to be calling in just a few minutes, and Jennifer has a brood of animals. She has 4 rescues, all of which are dogs, I believe, 2 adorable pit mixes, and I actually met Jennifer over social media, so I've been really excited to read her, and I'm interested to see how that's going to pan out. But maybe while we're waiting for Jen to call in, we can talk and share a little bit about how we work. A lot of times It's very interesting because a lot of times we work very opposite, where I need to know as little as possible regarding the client and their pet. More information can sometimes be more difficult for me, whereas Cora tends to need a lot of information.
Yeah, I ask a lot of questions. I need to know all of the background, history of the dog, where they got the dog from, really because that can really tie into behavioral issues that started from birth even. So I really need to know a lot of information, and you need to know none.
None, right. So we've had to figure out how to balance that. And one of the ways is I basically will meet with them first and have the consultation. And Cora, when possible, always sit in. And we look at the issues at hand. And it always seems to blend where, you know, I determine the issue with the pet really mirrors what's going on with the owner, and then you tend to come in and mirror that in a very logical way.
Right, and I think most people during the training sessions and the reading too, they realize, oh my God, it's not the pet, it's me.
Right.
I'm the one who has to do the work. I'm the one who has to do all of the soul searching and figure out how to change their habits, really.
Right. It's true, and that's why I think it's been helpful for me as a psychic to read both the pet and the pet parent, because a lot of times psychics or pet psychics will read just the pet, and the pet has a lot to say, but it doesn't necessarily help resolve the larger picture or the issue at hand, because we don't get to the issue of the pet parent.
Yeah, and their whole dynamic together, which is really important. It's their relationship.
Right, and we've both seen a common thread where a lot of times the pet parent doesn't want to do the homework.
Oh, yeah. That is very common.
So that's been interesting because I have found that, and when we teamed up, Cora, has said the same thing to me, where she says, I found the same problem where it's hard because we're asking a lot of the parent. We're asking them to change their behavior, and the animal will follow. Yeah. But it's not easy to change our behavior for any of us.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much easier for the dog to change than us because we have so much else going on in our lives. Right. The dog has us. They just watch us all day long, and they watch our inconsistencies. They see our patterns. So we have so much else going on that we don't have time to really focus on, wow, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that to change my dog and how they respond to me. Right. So it's so much harder for the owner, but if they don't change, then the dog won't change.
Right. You're right. And I think that for humans, usually our bad patterns or bad behavior comes from such deep-rooted outside sources or something that we've been accumulating for many years.
Right.
And so, a lot of times when we're asking the pet parent to change, we're asking them to kind of go within and ask yourself, why are you behaving this way? And it can come from past relationships or family issues, or it's never really just a simple, I work late. it's usually a lot more than that.
Yeah, it really is. And that's why when you talk about meditation and really focusing on themselves, it helps me and my job to address just them and their relationship with their dog, which is my expertise.
Right, right.
Meditation, not so much.
But have you found that your clients tend to open up or start crying or get emotional during their sessions?
Oh, yeah, definitely. They really do. And it's usually they're really hard on themselves. They feel a lot of guilt in the beginning, and then we have to move beyond that and just accept what's done and then figure out what we can do to change it.
Right. That's great. And I think the most fun sometimes is when the pet starts telling me like what's happening and how crazy their parent is being, and the parent is sitting there expecting these, you know, their dog to say all these amazing things like, I love my treats and I love my bed, and instead the dog is, you know, we had the one client where the dog was saying, you know, she's very neurotic and she's very nervous, and it's just not what they were hoping or wanting. It's not cute and fuzzy.
No, I mean, because dogs need solid leadership, and if they don't have that in their owner, if their owner isn't capable of providing that, that puts a lot on their owner.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's the big picture, which is why we talk mind and spirit, because just like for humans, there isn't just one way. There isn't just, it's not just meditation, and it's not just therapy or physical exercise. It's all of it together.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's the mental, the physical, and just the time that you put in with each other. And dogs are learning from every interaction you have with them, really. So you have to be consistent.
Right.
And that's the hardest part for people to do.
Right. And for me, I think it really hit home when I rescued Daisy. Daisy was born blind and deaf, and she's 7 years old now. We got her at 3 months. And that was when it really started to click for me as far as my psychic ability and the relationship between pets and their parents, because she was blind and deaf, and no one could help us at that time. This was 7-8 years ago, where now there are a few more deaf, blind, and special needs. But at the time, there was nobody, so all I had was my intuition. And to be honest, I was a little egotistical in the beginning, thinking, oh, I've got this. Like, I can totally do this. And then I couldn't, and we were up all hours for months, and I didn't know you then. And so it was difficult and devastating on many levels for us, but
just trying to make her feel safe and comfortable,
and
that she could trust you and completely depend on you.
And that took forever, because she bonded first with Olivia, and then she eventually came around, and now it's like she's the light of my life. But she inspired that in me and really opened that up and made me realize how important that connection is, and how important it is. Like we were talking yesterday, how I say, you know, the only time I turn off my phone is during meditation or walking the dogs and driving, of course. But, you know, once I started turning off my phone during the walks with the dogs about 5 or 6 years ago, it changed the whole dynamic, and it changed the relationship, and it became a more Zen experience for me as well.
Right, definitely. And I experience that a lot when I'm working with dogs. And you know, if I have my phone going off and I'm trying to focus on training a dog that doesn't necessarily know me that well yet, they don't think that I'm aware of everything else that's going on around them. So I'm not capable of keeping them safe.
Oh, interesting.
So then their behavioral issues come out, thinking, she doesn't have this. I need to scan for dogs. I need to scan for people, cars, monsters coming out at me.
Right.
So it makes them feel a little bit more insecure, or that they just need to attack whatever comes at them because we're not paying enough attention.
Oh, that's so interesting. But that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because now, like when I bring, because before I never in a million years imagined I could walk a deaf-blind dog and Olivia. And now that I do, I realize though, if I have friends on the walk with me, it distracts me just enough that next thing you know, I'm like wrapped up in their leashes, and you know, Olivia will become aggressive. It's totally different. So being so centered on them, and I love that time with them. You know, it's also like you should want and love that time.
Oh
with
yeah,
them.
definitely, and communicate with them. Talk with your dog instead of on the phone.
Right. That's something I love doing.
Yeah.
So we want to check in. Okay. So Jen, we haven't heard from Jen yet, but we can keep going on. Tell us a little bit about how you got into training, because I know you have a long history with pets.
So I got into training at a very young age. I was just exposed to it because my mom was a vet tech.
Oh, okay.
And my daycare was pretty much in a vet's office.
Wow.
So I got to witness a lot of stuff, got to be around a lot of
Was
animals.
that good or was that sad as a child being in?
I think in the beginning, I had a little bit of a hard time understanding about why they had to put dogs to sleep,
Oh,
but
right.
most of it was for medical reasons then. But it was a little tough, but I mean, you get used to it and you just accept it as part of life. And I
Right.
think if you're exposed to it at a younger age rather than as a teenager or something like that and not being exposed to it, it's easier to accept as a kid
Right.
that this is just the way that it is.
Sure.
And because we would take in a lot of animals that it was the end of their life cycle,
Right.
but we helped them pass over. And it was
Wow.
actually a nice experience.
I could imagine learning that young,
Yeah.
like you're saying. And so did you fall into it because it was just kind of what was in your life, or you had an immediate connection to animals and just knew?
Oh, I had an immediate connection because, I mean, most girls are playing with dolls and stuff like that. I wanted nothing to do with dolls. I just wanted to play with my little animals, and I'd pretend that I was an animal. Yeah, I was obsessed.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I knew that I loved it. And so I just knew that was my calling. And then I went to the Academy of Canine Behavior and studied and worked really hard. And now I have my own business, Prestigious Pooch.
That's so great. I knew some of it, but I didn't know
Yeah.
all the little details. And that's kind of like how it was for me. You know, I was born psychic, and it's all I ever knew.
Right.
And so you go through kind of your ups and downs with it, where sometimes I love the gift and sometimes
I'm sure it
I
drive
don't
you
want
crazy.
it.
You felt like you were probably crazy at some
Yes.
point.
Oh,
Yeah.
Crazy is a great word. But then you grow into it. As you get
Yeah.
older, it becomes you know, you have this love-hate relationship, and then as you grow older, you learn to bond with it and use it to your advantage. And again, Daisy really opened that door for me and
Yeah.
made me realize that I could do more with it than against it.
That's
That
great.
makes sense.
Dogs teach us so much.
I know. Okay, so it sounds like
right.
Jennifer's on the phone.
Oh, great.
Okay. Jennifer, are you there?
This is Rachel.
Oh, we have
Oh,
Rachel.
hi. Hi,
Okay.
Rachel.
No problem. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Okay, so we're going to, let me pull you up really quick. We've got,
This is Rachel with Sloan, right?
Yes.
All right.
thank you. Okay, Rachel, you are from Denver, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to, let's see, your question was, why does she act or react the way she does? Can you give me a tiny bit more information, meaning when she meets people or?
It's not as much people as it is other animals. She's pretty aggressive. She's gotten better in the time that we've had her, but when we first got her, it was 0 to 100
Okay, give me
in
one.
a second.
Okay, and how long have you had her now?
About 4 months.
Okay, give me 1 sec to look at her. I have her pictures here. Okay, so she definitely is. Now, keeping in mind, I'm reading the energy, so I might use the wrong terminology, in which case Cora can absolutely correct me. Her personality is dominant. I believe that's alpha, right? She wants to. It's almost like she doesn't understand how not to be dominant. That's her go-to. That's her. It's kind of like if you were human, the human's response, you know, you might have friends whose go-to response is always crying. And you're like, why do you always cry? This doesn't need to be something to cry over. And they're like, I don't know. It's just my go-to response. That's how Sloan is. Her go-to response is control. Dominate. And she's got just enough heart that it doesn't overwhelm her, if that makes sense. But I can see how it's overwhelming for you.
Yes.
I'm looking at, okay. But it's my feeling is you also have a very strong personality, right?
Yes, I do.
So as we know, it's not that unusual for animals. You've only had Sloan for 4 months, but like attracts like. And sometimes opposites absolutely attract. But in this situation, like is attracts like. And she's a very strong personality has met another very strong personality. And Sloan looks to you and says, "Oh, Mama does it. Well, perfect. It gives me the opportunity to also embrace that and own it." And what's interesting is in humans, we also have to manage our power or our strength and use it and know when to use it and know when to rein it back. So for people like you or for like me, we have to probably, check ourselves. Whereas other people are like, I have to remember to use my voice. Someone like me is like, okay, I have to learn not to use my voice sometimes. And I feel with you and Sloan, it's kind of similar where, if you could speak to Sloan, you'd say, okay, you got to know when to use your dominance and when to rein in a little bit and when to make room for others. She also needs to become comfortable. She's not 100% settled in her environment, so she's not trusting yet. Once she realizes she's not going anywhere and this is permanent, you're going to see her take it down a little bit. But it's going to be important for you and Mike as well to remind her, and then maybe this is something Cora can touch on, that she's safe, she's consistent, and she's not going anywhere. Once she settles into this and into her new home and sees the commitment level from you both, she will step back a little bit. You'll notice it'll pull back. But ultimately with Sloan, it's kind of simple. Her go-to trait is dominance. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, that's her 100%.
So the advice that I'd like to offer to you to assist Sloan is for you personally to say to yourself and notice that in your everyday life that you probably have similar situations where you might want to start saying to yourself, okay, let me check myself really quick before I jump or before I say something. It's not that you're reactive, but you're strong. And so people that aren't as strong as you can be intimidated. And it doesn't mean that you dim your light or you dim your power by any means. It just means that you notice when someone might be a little more timid, and you might honor that by saying, okay, maybe I'll bring my tone down a tiny bit, or maybe I'll take a beat before I say something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And when you start to change that, Sloan's going to mirror that, because Sloan's simply mirroring. And it's interesting because she's almost like got excited when she met you, where she's like, oh my gosh, someone just like me, we can dominate the world together, And for a dog, because they don't have as many, I don't know how to say this, like intricate mind, like different, like
reasoning
skills. Thank you. They have that go-to, whereas you have the ability to step down, to be emotional, to be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So, Rachel, I just have a few things. I mean, everything that Maryam said is very interesting, and I find that in your situation with her, since you've only had her for 4 months, that you guys are still getting used to each other, and she doesn't have a lot of stability. And if she was a stray, you said you found her near a lake park, I believe?
Sloan's Lake. Yeah,
Sloan's Lake.
That's why
Okay.
she got her name.
So if she never really was in a situation where she had stability in a home, she was probably always in fight or flight mode. And because now she's safe in a home, she may be in just fight mode because she feels more confident to do it. And in training,
it took me 20
in training,
minutes
we
to
talk
catch her.
a lot about countering energy too. So if she's really escalated, you have to be even more calm but assertive at the same time. But countering that energy, because she's going to be very amped up, and most likely it's adrenaline. When she gets up to 100, like you said, it's an adrenaline rush for dogs. So they can become adrenaline junkies. So you have to learn how to exercise her in a way that is that it doesn't get that adrenaline going, which is kind of hard to do with these dogs. But hiking with backpacks is really good. Swimming, other type of constructive exercise like find it games with them is really good because it makes them think at the same time. So yeah, countering her energy, trying to stay calm. And I know it's hard to do when it's a situation, especially if it's a surprise where all of a sudden you encounter a dog. Or another animal that she's reactive to. So managing the problem as far as if you see a dog coming and if you can tell that she's already getting amped up and getting pushed over her threshold, try to go behind a car, try to manage it, try to kind of block her a little bit, but stay calm at the same time. And you can also work on redirecting energy, which means, if she's fixated on another animal while you're out on a walk, redirecting that to you, teaching her a watch or a look at me command, and giving her a really high value reward when she takes her attention away from that other dog. And, I think that we kind of emailed a little bit about it. You just sent me some basic information about that I did not share with Maryam. Is that you are working with a trainer already, which is great. And
Yeah.
it sounded like you were having a lot of success with it, but it takes time. And I know it's so hard, but you have to be patient with it. And
I'm actually very, very happy with the progress that she's made. It's already night or day. When she reacts now, she reacts, but I can discipline her, sometimes even verbally, and she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot."
oh, good.
That's good.
That's really good, especially in 4 months. That's
she's
great.
making bounds and leaps of progress, but it's like at least once a week where she just totally forgets and completely loses it again, and we have to go back to square one and start from the beginning for a couple days and then tune her in again.
Yeah, and with these cases, it's always 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and it will happen, but you just have to stay with it. Just as we say, is with dogs, is just shake it off and move on.
And one other thing I'd like to add, Rachel, when you say that, I think it might be kind of an extreme example, but it's an example that I feel is very fitting. It's kind of like an alcoholic where they can relapse and then you have to take it a day at a time. I feel like it's the same with Sloan. Is she may relapse, and that may be something that's always part of her personality, but keep that in mind. Like for someone who is an alcoholic, it's a day at a time, it's a minute at a time, it's an hour at a time. It's about getting through that moment or that day, and then if tomorrow isn't as good, that's okay. You don't punish, you don't worry about it, you just start over. And so I want you to think about that as well. Okay So it looks like, really quick before we wrap up, so we've got to move on to our next caller. Overall, I'm looking at your other animals. Your cat and your bird are, pretty aloof and comfortable. But the little Chihuahua, is that Theo or no?
No, the Chihuahua is Jojo.
Jojo. I'm sorry, I mixed up the names. But be careful with Jojo. Jojo feels a little nervous around Sloan, so just watch that.
Okay.
Because Sloan is going to start to feed off of that nervousness and not read it or understand it correctly, which may cause some of the relapse and may cause some of the reaction I'm feeling from Sloan. So really make sure that Jojo is given time, feels in control, feels balance, equal energy in the space, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Rachel, and congratulations on Sloan.
Yeah, keep up the good work.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Up next, we have Rachel. Oh, we have Rachel. Is that you? No. Nope. That's okay. We're gonna find out who is up next in just a minute. But let's kind of recap a little bit for Sloan.
Interesting.
Yeah, she's done really well, but she's also been doing the homework.
Oh yeah.
And she also responded really well to the insight. A lot of times when I kind of delve into the personality trait a little bit, you can have a little bit of a resistance, but she was really open. And I think she's a great
really
example of a pet parent who's going to see great success with any type of animal because she was open to what you said, what I said, and was willing to do the work and change.
Right. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just not getting hung up on the setbacks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so who do we have?
I think we have Christine. Christine.
Okay. Christine, are you there?
I am.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you, Christine?
I'm doing well, thanks. How about you guys?
Good. Can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. So you have Bonka, correct?
Oh, I do, yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit. Will you say, why does she bark when she does? Is there a specific time that she's barking that's a little more strange than others?
It's a little bit more like I can't quite figure out what's setting her off. Sometimes when we're at home and we're relaxing, she'll be completely relaxed, and then all of a sudden she'll start barking at something outside. And I'm not quite sure what it is that sparks it. And then there are a couple of dogs that set her off that I can't quite figure out why those dogs in particular are dogs that she kind of goes crazy over.
Okay. So how long have you had Bonka for?
It's been about 4 years.
4 years. I don't know where she was prior to you. Did you have her since a baby?
Yes, she was in. Yes. More or less.
How old was she when you got her?
She was 6 months old when she was first adopted, and we lived in the same house for a little while together before she became my dog specifically.
I'm just sensing a lack of trust, and it's not with you. She's not trusting. I don't feel that she trusts other people. I don't feel she trusts other animals. I feel like she's nervous. She's worries about you. And she's unsettled. Have there been changes in her life the last year or so?
It's more the last 2 years. The last year, there hasn't been any real upheaval in the last year.
The last year there's been?
No, the last year has actually been pretty stable.
It was before that.
Yeah.
Okay. She's telling me she didn't trust. There was people around her or animals around her that she didn't trust, she didn't like. There were situations that were very unstable and unsettling for her. She's the type of dog that really is happiest in a quiet environment with maybe one other person, not a lot of commotion. She's very particular. If she was a person, she'd kind of be one of those people that everything is organized exactly the same way. She has a perfectly fit closet. She's that type of person that likes people, but on her own time at certain, and when likes to be able to kind of call the shots, not in an overpowering way, but in a way that makes her feel safe. There's just a lot of trust issues happening, and she worries about you. These trust issues are not something you did. This isn't something you've inflicted on her. This is something that she's going to have to allow this to kind of pass through her. It's a phase, but she's combining that with worrying about you. And so what's going to be most important is for you to continue to keep a very stable, consistent environment for her. Like I said, like if she was a person, she'd like everything lined up the exact same way. So kind of adapting that into a pet's mind. And for you to feel like you can trust where you're at in your life, and for you to feel like things changed, but you're on the up now. I feel like it's important for you to know that your life is moving in a more forward, positive direction. It's no longer going backwards or feeling like it's going backwards. And so you can feel like together you're moving forward. Now, her reacting is going to be understandable, kind of like how we have meltdowns or we cry. We say, I don't know why I'm crying, I just am. It's kind of that thing. So don't take it too personally or too deep. And I'll have Cora step in, and whatever we don't finish on air, we'll finish after, okay?
Yeah, we can definitely talk with you more about it. And I know that we're running out of time here, unfortunately. But as far as her barking goes and her being reactive to little sounds and stuff, it's just really important that she gets enough exercise so she's not so on edge, which is going to cause her to be more reactive. So wear her out mentally and physically. So training, obedience, nice long controlled training walks is really good for them. And then redirection. As soon as she tries to bark at something and alerts, redirect her to something else. Teach her a look at me command, and then reward her for being quiet. You can startle her if she is barking at something and she's very fixated. You can just make a little noise like, hey, and get her to look at you, and then tell her quiet. As soon as she's quiet, reward her for that. But I know we're running out of time here.
So, yeah, Christine, we'll stay on the line and we'll talk after, okay? But
okay, great.
Yeah, we're going to wrap up really quick. Thank you very much to everyone for being here. And this was our first show. Yeah. So it was a little rough start, but I think we did really well.
Yeah, I'm excited to do it more.
Yes. And so if you're interested to be a part of the show, check us out on Facebook, Prestigious Pooch.
Yes.
Or What About Daisy? Just shoot us an email and we'll get you set up. Thank you very much.
Shows that make you laugh. Shows that make you think. Music that moves you. It could only be one place. Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.